G'day everyone. Well, it's a bit of a dramatic day here in Wellington. It's cold and winter is setting in and there are great sheets of rain pouring across the neighbourhood. We even had an earthquake this morning, and it's just a reminder, all of these things together, that we live on this planet that is shaped and moulded by some incredibly powerful forces. And today I want to talk about one of the most dramatic and powerful geophysical events in history, the flood, the global flood of Genesis chapter 7. And the question I want to ask simply is, what evidence is there for it? How can we be confident that it happened? Well, one of the key pieces of evidence from a Christian perspective is the sudden, rapid disappearance of these guys, the dinosaurs. And the fossil record shows lots of evidence of creatures that were buried suddenly and violently. Any study of the past has to rely a lot on inference and assumptions rather than direct observation. For example, we can look at a great canyon and speculate that it might have formed over billions of years through a tiny trickle of water or a river. Or we can speculate that that same canyon might have formed in a matter of days or weeks through the mighty receding floodwaters of Genesis chapter 7. How we read the rocks depends quite a lot on our worldview and the assumptions that we bring to them. You can make a great case for the global flood of Genesis chapter 7 from the fossil record, from geology, but there will always be plenty to debate. So today, I want to take a bit of a different tack. I want to look at one particular piece of evidence that supports a literal reading of the book of Genesis, and that's much harder to fit into an old earth narrative. And it's the discovery of soft tissue in dinosaur bones. And this discovery, this phenomenon, has been reported in prestigious secular journals like Science and Nature Communications. And it really is a remarkable thing, because the dinosaurs are supposed to have died out 65 million years ago, according to a secular narrative. And soft tissue simply shouldn't last that long. A report from Scientific American says this: genetic material is not supposed to last over such time periods, not by a long shot. DNA begins to decay at death. Findings from a 2012 study on moa bones show an organism's genetic material deteriorates at such a rate that it halves itself every 521 years. This speed would mean paleontologists can only hope to recover recognizable DNA sequences from creatures that lived and died within the past 6.8 million years, far short of even the last non-avian dinosaurs. So, at a massive stretch, under ideal conditions, residual DNA in dinosaur bones could, at best, be expected to last 6.8 million years, which is well short of the 65 million years when the last of the dinosaurs supposedly perished. Now, these studies have stirred up quite a lot of controversy, as you can imagine. People are saying, well, how do you know that what you're finding in the bones belong to the dinosaurs in the first place? Maybe over time they became contaminated in some way, maybe bacteria got in there. Or maybe in the process of examining them, maybe there was a cut on a researcher's hand, and maybe that's how you're discovering some what appears to be DNA there. But the thing is, these results are coming through from multiple studies, and the researchers conducting the studies are 100% aware of just how explosive, how controversial these findings are, and so they're taking great care to rule out cross-contamination. One of the main reasons people object, in spite of all of that care, is because the data, the results, don't fit the assumptions, don't fit what they want to bring to the evidence, don't fit their interpretation of the world. And to be honest, this is surprising even for people who believe in a young earth, who believe that the earth is only thousands of years old, because, well, who would have thought that soft tissue would last that long? But from a biblical perspective, the gulf to be bridged is only a matter of thousands of years, and that is certainly possible. Now, we have to accept that this is only one piece of evidence after all, and it has to be considered alongside many others. But it's a different type of evidence, a telling piece of evidence that's much harder to fit into an old earth narrative compared to, say, layers of rocks. In days gone by, miners would keep a little bird, a canary, with them when they were deep underground. And they did this because if some sort of noxious, poisonous gas was present, well, the bird would go first. If the canary stopped singing, you knew it was time to get out. Now, the discovery of soft tissue in dinosaur bones is a little bit like the canary in the mine. A little sign that the much larger structure, in this case, the belief that the earth is billions of years old, has been fatally compromised. And maybe it's time to get out. From a biblical perspective, the gulf is not so hard to bridge. Dinosaurs were only here thousands of years ago. They died in a massive global catastrophe. Even secular science agrees that some sort of massive event caused their extinction. The Bible offers an alternative: the flood. In one of the oldest books of the Bible, God speaks to a man named Job. He says this: "Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron." Secular science tells us that the dinosaurs were wiped out millions of years before human beings turned up on the scene. And yet here we see this description of a creature that doesn't fit particularly well with the biggest animals we know. It doesn't sound like a hippo or an elephant. It sounds a lot more like this guy right here. It has bones of bronze and limbs of iron and a tail like a cedar tree. God says this behemoth was made alongside Job, and there's certainly some figurative imagery in the mix that should influence how we interpret this passage and the book as a whole. But the context suggests that God was trying to make a point by reference to a real living creature that Job and those listening to this story would be familiar with. But even if this was entirely figurative, you would have to ask, where did the writer get the idea for this creature with bones of bronze, with a tail like a cedar tree, if human beings and dinosaurs had never walked side by side, if they'd been separated by millions of years of history and thick layers of rock? The truth is, the secular narrative is fragile, and the world around us gives us powerful reasons to believe that the Bible is literally true. I hope you found this a useful reflection in the book of Genesis.